Hello, let's take a look at the Bastard Sword. You probably saw a lot of them lately, because they are quite powerful and fun to use, so let's take a look at the skills and see what they do. With Q, you perform jump, and then you can follow it up with 2 slashes. The important thing here is that the skill description says that there are only 2 strikes, but actually there are 4. Because you get 1 hit when you jump, 1 when you land, and then 2 strikes from the spin. It's gonna be important later. The second skill is a combo of strikes which cleanses CC and gives you a block for a whole duration. The third skill has 2 stages. When you hold the button, you do the charge which knocks back enemies, and when you release it, you do 2 strikes with the sword, where the last one concusses enemies. Ultimate consists of 3 stages. Firstly, you knock back enemies around you. Secondly, you do 2 slashes. And you finish with a jumping attack which instantly breaks the block and launches enemies. Note that knockback from the first stage can interrupt skills. Ultimate also cleanses CC on activation, heals you and gives you a buff. Enemies around you deal less damage to you, and each time you kill enemy unit, you heal 2% of max HP. The buff is called Spirit, which will be important later. You can also use your ultimate from the horse. However, it's a weaker version, because it skips the second stage, so you miss out on 2 slashes, so quite a lot of damage, and also the final blow does not instantly break the block, so you miss out on some damage and CC. Okay, so let's take a look at the basic attacks now. The basic attacks combo consists of 4 stages. First 3 have single slash, and the last one has a slash followed by a stab. The unique feature for this class is that the right click is also an attack. If you just press it, you do 1 slash, and if you hold it, like you normally hold the block and release it, you do 2 slashes. And this attack is called Riposte. Both of these basic attacks can combo with each other. If you do the right click and then left click, we will go straight to the third stage of basic attack combo. And if you do the right click after the fourth stage of basic attack combo, you do the 2 slashes, just like if you held the block. Skipping the stages in basic attack combo will also be important later. Another feature of this class is that if you perform a dodge after block or attack, you do the quick dash instead. This dash can be chained into more attack combos. If you do left click after the dash, you skip to the third stage, just like before. And if you do the right click, you perform a slash, which can be followed up with 2 strikes of the riposte. This slash counts as a riposte, except one situation, which I will explain later. There is also a special right click attack on the horse, which has a bit more damage, but it costs stamina. In my opinion, it's not very useful. The dismount attack is more interesting though. It's the same skill as Q with separate cooldown, but they share the second stage cooldown. So what you can do with that is that if you dismount from the horse and then do not use the second stage, for example use other skill or dash, then you can use the Q again and then do the spinning slash. So you basically get 2 uses of the Q, which will also be important later. Okay, so that's all about the skills. Let's take a look at how you can customize this class. You don't have any choice when it comes to the skills, but there is this new system with nodes which you can use to add additional effects to your skills. You can use all armor classes, but some of these nodes are constrained by your total armor value. Okay, so what do we have here? Each skill has 3 nodes which you can choose from. So let's go through all of them and I will explain what they do. So for the Q, the first one reduces slashing defense of enemies when you hit them with the Q. The second one allows you to chain the second stage of Q into the second stage of riposte. So you do the jump, then you do the spin, and then when you do the right click, you do 2 attacks of riposte. And the last node reduces damage which enemies deal to you after you hit them with the Q. For the second skill, the first node gives you 3000 HP if you hit enemies when your health is below 10%, which in my opinion is pretty weak because this skill has pretty long cooldown and you have to use it exactly when you have below 10% HP. So it's, in my opinion, hard to pull off and there are better options. So the second one, after you use this skill, you just heal 6% of max health over 6 seconds, which in my opinion is much easier to use. And you can see here that there is additional effect gated behind the armor. You have to have below 2100 armor in total. And if you have this, then this healing is doubled. And the last node increases your damage when you block enemy attacks. Kinda self-explanatory. The nodes for the charge have a bit more visible effects. The first one, when you use the charge, you lose 15% of HP, but during your charge, when you hit enemies, you knock them down. The second node changes the CC you inflict if you do the charge before hitting enemies. And instead of concussion, you will throw them. Throw is a stronger CC than concussion because I don't think there is any skill which allows you to get up after you get hit by that. So it improves the CC, but only if you do the charge before hitting enemies. It won't work if you just tap the button. And with the last node, the charge marks targets so that they take 15% more damage from all sources. For the ultimate, the first one increases the block break of the ult and optionally makes it CC immune. The second one reduces cooldown of the ultimate and gives you additional healing when you use it. And the last node increases damage of the ultimate and optionally, when you do the dash, you increase your damage by 20% for 3 seconds. You can stack it 2 times, so it's pretty good if you want to go for a big damage. Okay, and the left click attacks. The first one restores HP when the last stage of basic attacks hits the enemy. Remember how I told you that after some combos you start from the third stage? That's why it's important. It allows you to use this healing more often. The second one, during the spirit, so after you use the ultimate, hitting enemies with left clicks reduces cooldown of ultimate. I think it sounds good on paper, but in practice I saw that you get maybe few seconds of the reduction because you don't really have time to just stay there and hit enemy units to reduce the cooldown. So I'm not a fan of this one. And the third node, also after using ultimate, so during the spirit, left click attacks stun enemy units. But I tested it and the stun is very, very, very short. So I don't really see much difference. For example, it's not like you can stun lock enemy units and they won't hit you. So I also don't think it's very good. So in my opinion, the healing is the best one here. Okay, and for the riposte, the first one, if you hold block and you get hit, you increase your damage by 30%. The second one is a bit cryptic because it says that it releases a wave of sword energy. So what it is that when you do the attack, you get the second instance of damage in increased range and AoE. So your attack has higher range, but also if you hit someone in your normal range, you do double the damage because he takes damage from a sword and from this additional wave of sword energy. Note that it doesn't trigger for an attack which you do after you dash and press right click. This is the exception I mentioned earlier. And the last one doubles the guard break of the riposte. When I tested it against the longsword, if you do this dash attack and then 2 hits of riposte, you almost block break longsword from full block. So it's pretty strong. Okay, and now we have these 3 nodes down there. They are additional bonuses you can pick. Each skill has 2 bonuses to choose from. You cannot pick 2 for the one skill. So let's go through all of them. The first one for the Q gives you a shield when you use the skill. So basically a free HP. I think it's one of the strongest nodes here because bonus HP is always good. And do you remember that Dismount attack is also a Q? It means that you can get the shield twice. However, it doesn't stack. You have to use the second shield after the first one finishes. Otherwise, you don't get anything. The second node, I find it very weak. And basically, if you land all hits of Q, you can inflict bleed on enemy, but it's 20% of their current health. I think it's very hard to pull off and for not much value. So I very much prefer this shield upgrade. It's just much more reliable and more useful, I would say. For the E, the first one just gives you 24% damage reduction, which is like all around good. You basically press E and you get damage reduction. You cannot go wrong with that. And the second one is a bit more specialized. When you use E, you get a buff. And when the buff is active, when you dash, you get damage immunity for half a second. And optionally, you reduce the stamina cost of your dashes. So it can be very annoying for enemies, but on the other hand, it's hard to mitigate damage with that because you have to time it perfectly. I think you could play around with that, but for sure it's harder to pull off than just damage reduction from the other node. Alright, for the charge, the first one allows you to execute enemy units when they are below 20% health. This one is much better than it sounds. What it doesn't tell you is that you aren't the one which has to execute these units. How it works is that it marks units for 5 seconds, and if they drop below 20% health in that time, they die. The two things to note here is that you have to charge to mark them. The second stage of the attack doesn't do it, and it doesn't work if you hit a block. The second option for the charge is that the second stage, so the attack with the sword, always breaks guard of enemies. It allows you to break block of stalwarts or spear and shield or other annoying shielded enemies. For the ultimate, the first one is very strong. The way it works is that you sum up all your armor, sum up all armor of enemy, and for each 100 armor of difference where he's above you, you get 6% more damage. So if you are light armor or medium and you hit heavy armor, you get like big damage increases. I think there is no cap because I managed to get over 100% damage increase. So yeah. And there is one more thing with that node, which I'm not sure if it's intended, but it makes it much stronger, but I will show it later. Alright, and the second one, you lose HP when you use ultimate and you get bonus damage based on your bonus HP. I think this one is very bad because the damage increase not that much and you lose HP instead of healing. Okay, for the left click attack, the first node makes it so that you reduce the stamina cost of dodges after basic attacks. And optionally, you get a day's immunity on your basic attacks. And the second one adds this wave of sword energy to left click, so you can have it on both of your left clicks and right clicks. And bonuses for the riposte. This one is interesting because it completely changes your playstyle. It basically removes the damage from all other skills apart from ultimate, but increases damage of riposte. So the idea here is that you use only basic attacks to deal damage and other skills just to get utility from them. So there is some playstyle to have with this one. And it comes together when you take a look at runes, which we'll do later. And the second node, when you hold the block, you get a CC immunity for 1 second. I'm not a fan of this one because you have to time it and it's not so easy to get the block up because if you do it too quickly after the dash, you just do the riposte attack instead of blocking. So yeah, pretty hard to use. Alright, so that's all of the nodes. So maybe let's quickly talk about attributes. Most of your damage comes from the slashing, So I would go with enough slashing penetration, so like 1800, like on Nodachi, and then into strength or armor or whatever you want. Depending on what build you want, what set you use, and then you just adjust your stats. But I think slashing penetration and damage is the core. Okay, so let's take a look at the runes. The cheap one adds the knockback to the E, which I guess is good. And you have a choice between having a knockdown on riposte or bonus damage on left and right clicks. The knockdown is very good because it's not like you have to use it right after the block. And when you hold the block, you get a buff which lasts around 10 seconds. And in this time, when you do the right click, you will knock down. And it also synergizes with these wave attacks, which increases your reach. So you have like more reach on your knockdown. So yeah, you can combo it pretty easily with other skills. And the second rune just increases your damage. When you do the right click, the left click will get bonus damage, and when you do the left click, the right click gets the bonus damage. Simple as that. Let's take a look at the epic set now. As for the armor it provides, it's somewhere between medium and light. So if you use it, you get these bonuses below 1800 armor. And the bonus, I'm personally not a fan. The first bonus is that you get cooldown reduction on E after you use Alt, which is okay, I guess. Then you get some more damage. And then you get these stacks, which reduces the next damage taken to minimum. And like on paper, it sounds very bad because reducing 4 instances of damage when you get hit by 30 units doesn't seem like much. But when I tested it, it's not like it's only 4, but if you get hit by, I don't know, 30 units at once, and then all of these attacks will be reduced. But it's like very brief. But is it very useful? I'm not sure. It allows you to do some things like, for example, you can charge into Hussar's charge and you do not die if you are lucky. So maybe you can use it to, I don't know, initiate attacks and not instantly die from braced units. Maybe there is some build which could make use of this, but like in general play, I think it's too situational. And with the new sets we get, there are just better options, I think. Okay, so let's take a look at some builds. One of them, which I use quite a lot, is going for heavy armor, the Stone Guard armor. I go for the just enough agility to get 1800 slashing penetration and resin strength. Okay, and for the skills, I focus on like surviving more. So on Q, I get damage reduction for the enemies, healing on E, throw on the charge just to get some stronger CC, and the ultimate, the only one which works with heavy armor, so additional healing and a cooldown reduction on ultimate. On left click attacks I have heal, and on riposte I get guard break, but honestly I don't use it that much. And for these additional nodes, the shield on the Q, and the damage reduction on E, and the additional damage placed on armor difference. And even if you have heavy armor but enemies have like points in armor, you still get bonus damage. And this skill is broken, which I will show you later, so that's why I used. If you go with different set and you have below 2100 armor, then you for sure want to use the CC immunity on the ultimate. I will also note that I often change these bottom nodes. For example, I use the instant block break on charge instead of damage reduction on E. Alright, so what's the deal with this damage increase from armor difference, which I mentioned? In short, it works for your units. When you use ultimate, you buff your units. It has global range, so you don't have to stand next to them. And it takes the difference between armor of the unit and their target. Basically, take a unit with low armor, like archers or couturiers or Onamusha, and you can give them like plus 50, 100% damage, depending on what they attack. Kinda insane. Alright, so that's all for this video. I hope I explained everything about Bastard Sword. Have a beautiful day and see you in the next one.